I do need someone. Thank you, Karen. I do need someone to move the adoption of the agenda. And as per, okay, excellent. I see Lloyd has moved that. All in favor? And again, unless there's conspicuously nays, I'm saying it's passed unanimously. So thank you very much for that, team. Okay, moving on to the adoption of the previous minutes. So the last time we chatted was November 23rd, 2021. So it's been a bit. Has anybody had a chance to review the minutes of November? Any questions? I know, Lloyd, you've always got a good eagle eye for these.
There's 5 pages of minutes and I read them all. I couldn't see any arrows or errors or omissions, so I think we're good to go.
Perfect, sounds great. All right, in that case, I'll call for a motion to adopt the previous minutes. Neil, will you make that motion for us?
Certainly, I can do that.
Excellent, thank you so much. All in favor? Okay, again, by my eyes, it looks to be unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, adoption of the previous minutes. So like I said, we're on to item 4, which is the community work plan for 2022. So just as a review, last year, due to various elements, this committee didn't maybe make as much progress or in action items as we would like. But now that we're kind of getting our staffing issues right-sized, and in working through with Mrs. Lowe, we've come up with 3 items that we'd like to discuss as a group that we could look forward to adding to our work plan for this year. Then the process is, once we land on our work plan items, we would, I would take this back to council, Stacy and I would, and have a review in our next committee of the whole session. Make sure council is comfortable with it and gives us this direction. And then if everything's in alignment, we are off to the races this year for some really practical work. So that's kind of the context of what we're looking at. So Stacy and I had done some brainstorming around where we saw both the needs as well as the strengths of this organization and what we're trying to accomplish. So first off, in the community work plan, and Don, you'll be happy to see this. What we're trying to do is make sure that everything that we're doing this year is going to feed in to the need for a master recreation plan. So any work that we undertake as a group, that would be my hope, is that it would be feeding into that. So I'm just going to introduce these 3, and then we can kind of chat them out, and we can either add or subtract or expand or clarify as the group best sees fit. And Stacy, lean in and help me out if I go off track. I always appreciate that. So the first one is the community connectivity gap analysis. And so in our discussions, we saw this as kind of a short-term tactical project that members of this group could do. This would be looking around the community, and maybe we form a subcommittee that would like find those gaps, whether they're sidewalk gaps or pathway gaps or cycling gaps, or however the community connects. Where are they, so that we can identify those gaps and then champion a solution. So that seems like a really a nice one to get into for this group, especially since we know our communities and live in it and help to find those gaps. So that's the first idea. I'm just going to do all 3 and then we'll chat them out. The next one was the community partnership discussions. And again, Cochrane is so fortunate in so many of the community groups that see a need, want to make a difference, are building a community, whether it's pickleball or rugby or baseball or your men's hiking group. So how can we, and Leah, this speaks to a lot of your strengths, how can we create a partnership discussion around how do we bring the players to the table and kind of get into a reasonable conversation about where we want to be, where our gaps are, but how we can leverage the strengths and kind of pull everybody out of their silos and maybe get, as a community, partners into a discussion point. Then finally, the community survey, and our discussions were around leveraging the municipal communications team to really identify in Cochrane recreation and park spaces what's important to us, and then where are the opportunities for improvement. And that would be a longer term project. So kind of the gap analysis should be a short tactical project that we can all get our teeth into or our feet into. Community partnership discussions, that one can build, like, how can we bring everybody to the table, and what do we want to chat about when we get everybody to the table, and then the community survey. So those are kind of the three concepts we were batting around. In addition to that work, it is expected that this group will feed into the Jim Uffelman Park review as another plan. So that's where our discussion is. Stacy, I'm going to ask you to feed into this, help me make sure I captured kind of everything it is, and then we'll go back to the group.
Yeah, so what we did is we looked at the discussion that happened last time, that bit of a brain dump that we all did, where we brought forward ideas about things that we thought were important, whether that was the recreation inventory, the off-leash parks, pathway sections that needed repair, active transportation grant that was talked about, all of the groups and the sports groups and the organizations, and bringing them together and trying to figure out a way so that the work that this group was doing was meaningful and was feeding into that recreation master plan, so that it's not in isolation and we have these one-off pockets, because that's actually what we're trying to avoid, and bring all of it together. So that's kind of the goal of these. All of them have kind of that theme about pulling all of the community discussions together. So the gap analysis really was when we were talking about the repair upgrades, or places where maybe there were connections missing completely. How do we leverage some of the information that we have individually from our independent communities, and the connections that we have with people in them? So it doesn't necessarily mean that individually we would all be walking. Maybe people who have already identified areas through your connections that each of you have with your networks. So where are those areas that we've already identified that could use some some attention? And then that information would then be part of what was given to a future facilitator or contractor that would start pulling together that recreation master plan, just as some context and an inventory, for example. The community partnership discussions really came from that discussion, Leah, that I think that you brought up last time about the sports groups, the all of the individual organizations in our community that are doing a lot of really great work, but sometimes don't know what each other are doing, or aren't aware that there's opportunity to leverage each other to actually achieve what they're trying to accomplish, as well as what the town's trying to achieve. And so selfishly speaking, some of this is also going to help as I leverage and bring back together community services, which I see this committee being part of. And so what are those opportunities for these groups to connect, to create alignment, to determine whether or not there's opportunity to work together, to work with the town, to create a little bit more inclusion and opportunity for people to actually even be aware of what's available in our community. And then the community survey, definitely something that would have to happen a little bit later in the year, but would still very clearly be able to be content and context that the recreation master plan would use in developing that. So we really had a lot of discussion around how do we make the survey not we don't have this, and how come there isn't that, and why aren't you doing this? But more of a, what do you like about our community? What do we love? What do we want more of in Cochrane when we talk about parks and open spaces and recreation and in that community context? So really just an opportunity to feed that, so that at the end of the day, one of the key goals, I think, is actually having a recreation master plan that's meaningful, and one that we can then take and start to implement some of the things that it suggests that we should be able to achieve. So that's where it all came from. It was just trying to find some of those common threads and common themes from that brain dump discussion that we had last time, and pull them into a little bit bigger overarching goals that can then feed that recreation master plan. The only other thing I wanted to say, Councillor McFadden, is you suggested that it would come to the next committee of the whole. The next committee of the whole is very full. So it will likely be the one after that, which I think is the 21st. It wouldn't be the 7th of February.
Well, that's disappointing. I definitely think that all of my projects should be the most highest priority of whatever we talk about at any given day. So thanks for the clarification. Sorry to have got my hopes up. Yeah, anyhow, thank you again, Stacey. It was great working with you and pulling some cohesion to what I was trying to communicate. So I appreciate it. So now that you've kind of heard the two lenses on what we were brainstorming, I want to throw it to the group for kind of a first thoughts on these as the work plan, and if they're in alignment, or your thoughts around those. And we'll kind of see where we land on looking at these three. And then once we settle on that, we'll have a little bit of a conversation about each individual ones, if that's where we land, if that makes sense. So, so yeah, first I throw it open to the group. Dawn, actually, you get to lead on this. Because I said
I'm sure you're shocked.
Yeah. So anyhow, share your thoughts with where you think we're going.
I'm just absolutely thrilled to hear that this is going to hopefully roll into a recreation master plan, as Tara alluded to. I think since my first meeting, whenever that was, I've been talking about that, and I'm a huge supporter of doing a lot of planning and really getting a sense of what needs and preferences are in the community before you build those types of plans. So the one question I did have was, we had talked about doing a master plan for Midford and for the ranch, and that got delayed over the last year. Are you suggesting that those be put on the back burner until this recreation master plan is completed, or are they sort of waiting to, I mean, this will certainly feed into what those are. And so it would make a lot of sense to me to do that.
Yeah, I think that I have to catch up on my conversations with the team, but I think essentially where we're landing is that, yes, like as a strategy, let's start at the top and feed down into the details afterwards. So I think where we've landed, Stacey, please clarify for me, those budgets will then roll in and support the creation of the recreational master plan.
Right.
Yeah, that was definitely the discussion through budget. And my vision was that while those are important, they're very isolated to specific outdoor assets that we actually have, where we know that there's a bigger context. So how do you actually pick off two areas to work on without having that overarching plan first? And then from there, it will build into some of those areas. There's a possibility that the master plan may speak to those particular areas a little bit, and may start then the process for what those subsidiary plans would be to that overall master plan.
That makes total sense to me. The other question I had was around community associations. A lot of the work in a lot of different municipalities, community associations are very much involved in the delivery of both recreation and sport. And I'm wondering where the town of Cochrane is going with that in terms of support to community associations, encouraging the growth of community associations, and encouraging their role in the delivery of grassroots recreation and sport.
100% agree with you. Sorry, Tara, I'm going to jump in. I've had these conversations over the last couple of days, actually. It is something that I think they're an underutilized resource in our community, quite simply, probably because we haven't had a central community services department. And so I think that it's another area that we have an opportunity to really capitalize on. Some of those groups have huge momentum and are able to pull together phenomenal events for their communities because we all have people in our communities who are experts in different things. So one of the things that we will be working on as part of my portfolio, the Ranchos Event Center Community Events and Culture is part of the community services portfolio. And so that group includes those community events that happen throughout and are kind of that link to some of those, as well as the opportunity to support them. And FCSS has also done a significant amount of programming to support those associations as they get started, and in leveraging and helping them, build communication strategies and that type of thing. And then of course, Ledge Services also helps coordinate their grant funding for, there's a grant that council budgets for every year for the community associations to help support them in their insurance. But I think we can do better and we can do more. And certainly when we're talking about, whether it's the gap analysis, if that's something that we wanted to send out to those community association representatives, definitely there's an opportunity there, as well as sharing the survey with them directly so that they can share those with their neighborhood residents. And then we have an upcoming council meets right once a year, usually once a year, maybe twice a year. I can't remember anymore. It's been a while, COVID. Twice. Thanks, Karen. I was looking at you. Thanks for noting that I was looking at you. We usually meet with them twice a year just to talk about issues and concerns and share information. So I 100% agree with you. There's a opportunity there for sure.
Oh, great. Thank you, Stacy.
You bet.
Yeah, just to affirm that, I mean, I've always been a big supporter of the community associations, from the need to help them with their budgets to even these meetings. And it's nice that we're evolving through COVID wherever we land, that we're getting back on track. And so, as Stacey said, we're meeting with them right away to engage. And I can really see they can be partners through all of this. The gap analysis, a partnership discussion, of course, and then participating in the survey. So real partners. I certainly believe in strengthening them as much as we can, and making them part of this. So it's a very good question. And thank you for highlighting it, because I have to admit, they weren't on my top list. But once you say it, it's immediately obvious. So anyone else on kind of where we're going with the three? Peggy?
Yeah, thanks. Oh, just got ahead of you, Loya. Just,
Go ahead.
I'll be quick. Yeah, so it sounds like these three pieces would be baseline information that you would then hand to a consultant. And I think that's a great idea. This is what I do most of my days, is recreation planning. So I have there's always baseline information that needs to be gathered. And especially on our social side, we don't often monitor or understand people's experiences and what they want for experiences, how they experience the landscape now, but also how they'd like to see it change. So for the gap analysis, it sounds like it's a network focus, but it could be issue focused. One of the first things that whoever does the plan will have to figure out is what are the planning issues, what's in scope and what's not. And so that gap analysis could include documenting different planning issues that might be specific to, the network has got gaps, that's a planning issue, but also could be bigger things like we're missing X space for this activity, or we don't have programming for X, or, and is it the planning issues can be about the actual infrastructure, but also about the programming. And looking at Leah here, who brings that up, right? Yeah, I don't know who your planning director is, or if you've hired them yet, but is this their job to organize the gap analysis and then we provide input to it? Like, is it?
No, so our brainstorming process, and so, yeah, this is great. Our new planning manager, I think, walked in the doors on Monday. And we'll give you that update, but a lot of the resources we need are coming on board, and finding their desks, but they're coming on board.
Okay.
Our thought, though, with the connectivity gap analysis, was that this would be a project that this group could lead and deliver through some subcommittee work. In previous years, this committee has actually delivered on its work through subcommittees. And so this one, I think, this would be on our own resources, minimal leverage from the municipality.
Okay.
So in that context.
Yeah, sometimes it helps to have somebody who's paid to just make sure that the group stays on focus, and even just creating the template for the document that we're supposed to then fill in, right? That kind of thing.
So one of the things we did talk about very preliminarily was just that, like breaking up, if there is a subcommittee and or the committee itself wants to break out, then creating areas or maps or whatever that is. So then that's your area. You're going to take advantage of where you live or where and just identify where there may be. I think, Peggy, one of the things you're talking about, there will still be some of that work that the consultant is going to have to do from that greater gap analysis and that greater engagement of stakeholders in order to be able to pull together a recreation master plan. That's where the paid staff is going to happen. It's not going to be an employee of the town, obviously, but that consultant, it will be part of that program to actually pull this. What we were wanting to focus on, though, is that any activity or work that this committee does should also feed that work. So it will make it easier. It will be augment the information that they also gather. It's just additional information and insight is, I think, what we were trying to look at, not a fulsome recreation gap analysis for the community.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah, I think Peggy used two key words, I think, that really kind of clarified my thoughts around this. This is from my lens, this was going to be a network analysis, that type of a connectivity, not a full community connectivity gap analysis, social, physical, emotional,
Network,
environmental,
trail.
however far
Yeah.
you wanted to leverage it. But yeah, I was really saying this is a network also, and that this is a baseline. So that's what this community in a tactical sense would be able to deliver with minimal staff support, is kind of a network analysis, providing baseline info. So stealing your great concepts, thank you. And then that would feed into as a resource.
It sounds like it could be a recreation inventory, but we develop it, and then the consultant would have to go and do their own gathering of information to augment, obviously. But if we could use something like Google Maps and actually put our feedback in Google Maps, then the consultant can export that into ArcGIS and combine it with a bunch of other data. Just sometimes we put all our information in a Word document and then it doesn't have, the physical locations aren't really referenced properly. So, and they matter so much, right? Okay, community partnerships. I don't fully understand that one, but I'll leave it for now. So I'll leave that question like, what are we leading focus groups? And then the next question was community survey. This again sounds like a baseline survey, and I think there's two reasons. I think I kind of know there's two reasons we do this kind of monitoring. One, to find out what our desired conditions are, what our vision is, what we want. That's why we would ask the community. And the other one reason is to find out if what we're doing is right, or what is proposed they agree with. And I think in this case, we're trying to figure out what our desired conditions are to set up that trail plan. And so it probably, unless it's run by consultants, it probably won't be representative, whatever we gather. Like if it's a online survey that the public can respond to, unless we get, I don't know, 500 surveys, we can't claim that, probably even more for our population, we can't claim that it's representative, but it could still provide valuable information on what some public want. So I just want to point out, I know you guys have done phone surveys before, and those random phone surveys are really great because you can claim that they're representative. But if we do develop something, because we don't have the resources, that's just online, we have to get a certain volume. The other option is we go and actually go to places in person and do surveys. That sounds ridiculous, but maybe not. In parks, we would send out like volunteers. In many jurisdictions, they do get volunteers to go and stand at intersections, and then you space out your sampling protocol over days of the week. And so you say, I want a weekday morning, I want a weekday afternoon, a weekday evening, and a weekend. And you know you're going to sample a little bit more on the weekends, but you can actually pick and choose in the community where you go. You go stand in the dog park, you go to Midford Pond, you go to the hockey rink or whatever, and you get people's feedback on their recreational experiences in that place and why they're there. That's getting to the recreational experiences. So I digress. That's another idea on how you administer the survey.
No,
I think they're all, sorry, go ahead, Tara.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, I think we're all kind of in the same track, that there's a need. And I really saw it as an opportunity pending COVID, as this could be an activity that we really do leverage with some in person. I know the municipality was doing some great engagement with the land use bylaw work prior to COVID ruining our lives. But this would be a really great opportunity to leverage some of the strengths of our communications team and helping to develop the community survey, but I really saw this as the connectivity and helping to source those survey results would be a tangible action of this group, that this could be some of our volunteers that would go out and get some of those surveys started. So yeah, we can do like, and see, this is what I love about this committee starting, is so much of the expertise that's on here. So I'm looking forward to leveraging all of your thoughts and passing brilliance to make something happen. So any other?
Yeah, I
Sorry,
just wanted to
Susan.
add to that, sorry. I would echo most of what Tara had said, in that the communications team we have has definitely taken our surveys and the engagement that we've done, because it's not just a survey, it's engagement, and it's engaging the community in a conversation around what do we have, what do you use, how do you use it, and what do you love about it, and what would you like to see us do more of, is kind of the theme. Obviously their experience in making sure that the questions you're asking actually provide you quantifiable data, and data that's going to be useful in the recreation master plan as we go forward. And then obviously using those opportunities for champions of this, which I see as the committee members, going out and engaging in the community, whether that's having conversation at the the summer markets, or at the Spray Lakes, or at the old arena during a Cochrane Generals game, or wherever that is. And whenever we actually start this, the Generals might not be playing anymore, but you know what I'm saying. So I think that that's absolutely the intention, Peggy. So that's really great. And the back to the Google Maps thing, I don't know anything about that, but I'm sure that there are people that do. So the goal is to absolutely make this as intuitive and as easy and as meaningful, because it's not, no one wants us to be a make work plan for no reason either, which is why it's important that it actually feeds, and the data we're getting actually feeds into that final desired recreation master plan. So sorry, Lloyd.
Yeah, so Peggy, are you comfortable?
Yeah, no, that's
Okay,
good.
yeah.
I'll come back with more chatter later.
No, that's perfect. That's the point of the brainstorming session. Lloyd, over to you, sir.
Boy, can you girls ever talk?
Yeah,
Keep up.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. And getting back to Dawn's comment, she says, I don't remember when she made some request, but Dawn, you and I and Kelly, we're now going into year number 4 on this committee. So we made a few suggestions, and we're going to go from there. So I got a couple of things to add on the community connectivity analysis. And last year and the year before, I requested from the town, even when Brad was here, get an updated map of the pathway system. What was planned at that time? Because, the men's walking group, we use all the paths 3 days a week. And we do have gaps there, and we'd like to get them filled in. So, there's an issue there, the pathways, and you don't know if you walk out on the river path on a weekend, how much these pathways are being used. It's unbelievable. And so that's something I'd like to keep pursuing, is get that overall plan for the whole town. And maybe it does include Google Maps, if that's possible. I do have people in our group that can do that type of thing. So that's one thing I like to pursue, is get those pathway gaps done. On the community partnership discussions now, we had 2 delegation days the last few years, and those groups, those are the people that they want to be partners with this town, and they want to get involved, and some of it's going to be taken care of on the Horse Creek part, but there's other groups there that still need some input, say the pickleball group, got to keep these people in mind on this partnership aspect. So I guess that's all I can say for now.
well, I think, Lloyd, you summed it up, and I think we're on the same page, certainly from the connectivity gap analysis. That's where you're coming from. It is a big lens of mine as well. Is just when you're out walking, and I live down by the river, and I see you guys out walking all the time, and you guys know, like physically know where the gaps are, and so let's identify those and take advantage of your knowledge and the community's knowledge in identifying these things. So yeah, that's a big piece of what I was hoping to identify with that one. And the partnership discussions, again, I think we did great work with the delegation days in understanding groups and talking to groups. But like you said, a lot of those needs are going to be met on the Horse Creek. But how do we, as a community as a whole, do the holistic partnership? So not just the one project, but as a whole was kind of the vision there. So I think we're in alignment, you and I, of where we're trying to accomplish with these two pieces, or with these three pieces.
Thank you.
Let me just peruse. Okay, so now Leah, I'm gonna call on you because you are one of the queen bees of partnership discussions and liaison. So no pressure or anything, but I need you to leverage your expertise and help me design a community partnership discussion.
I'm like sitting here trying to contain my excitement right now, like so much, so much like John and Lloyd. I am, yeah, definitely excited. I also feel like listening and getting to know everybody's, like Peggy's expertise and all that. I really can't wait till we all get to sit down in person and yeah, get all these ideas flowing as a group. So that connectivity will be really nice also. Yeah, I absolutely see. So Peggy, to kind of respond to what you're saying, that's where I go, because with the organization I'm involved with, Sport for Life Cochrane, with the sport network, it's so interesting that when you get the sports to come together, they have these conversations that they're kind of craving to have, but they don't know it. They're stuck in their silo. They're trying to figure out on a shoestring budget in COVID, how they're going to deliver these programs or what they're going to do. You know, there's all sorts of things like baseball, I heard sold out in an hour. Well, there's a whole bunch of 4 and 5-year-olds that maybe the town or a community center or somebody could run that doesn't have to put a burden on our sport associations, right? Like we don't need all the sports to deliver to all age groups. So there's just a whole bunch. The other one that comes up a lot is we know that, you know, multi-sport and not specializing in a sport and doing lots of activities like walking and just outdoor stuff younger is really good. But when we offer programs, we don't get the uptake. So there's a community education piece around that as well. And then the other piece I was thinking about was, if we're talking about the partners and who's in our community and not just sport, recreation, I think schools are a huge part of that, because our schools do a great job, but they also can't do everything. And it involves all of us working together. Who's not coming, who's not accessing our programs, who, you know, a lot of our minor sports associations, the bigger ones anyways, they don't need to reach out to marginalized groups because they're already full, but there's other ones that aren't. And how do we make sport more inclusive, or even our pathways, or how we're communicating about the opportunities in our town? So for designing the partnership discussion, I think just to as information for you, and this could be something I'm happy to discuss, but as a part of our sports survey that we did last year, we're following up with some focus groups with the sport organizations, and where we're going to reach out to parents as well and find out, you know, what motivates you to, you know, put your child in XYZ program. So those will be coming up over the next couple of months, but I'm happy to kind of take a step back and see if there's a better way to gather that information more effectively through this process as well, because I think the information will benefit the whole community for sure. So
Perfect.
yeah, like tons of ideas there.
I know. See, that's what I'm so excited about.
Well, I guess, sorry, just one more thing. When Lloyd was talking about those groups coming, and I think we were one of those, I think I sent a couple of board members to the first partner days. But yeah, like then giving those groups, like you were saying, Lloyd, a chance to now feel like something's happening, like they have a place to connect, they have a place to come back or share resources and all of those types of things. So yeah, I think it's going to strengthen our community even more. So it's great.
Yeah, and Leah, thanks for that. I think again, your phrasing clarified for me. Like, so we're saying community partnership discussions, and what you're getting here is planner bureaucratic speak. But that one's really about how do we create the place to connect, right?
Absolutely.
Like that phrase that you said for me defines the heart of what I want to see done with that piece, is how do we bring the groups as a place to connect and, you know, find solutions and priorities together, right?
Yeah,
So,
and be able to, yeah, and like support them to happen, but we might not need to fund it. Sometimes just simply by bringing a group together, they come up with that solution. And I think it goes to, you know, the interagency group, for example. We go to those meetings and, you know, they're dealing with very heavy social issues, and we're talking about the power of sport, and they're there's something there, but we haven't been able to leverage that yet, right? And I just think the scope is massive for that. So
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Like, so what I'm hearing so far from everybody. Oh, hang on, wait. Neil, nice
Mhm.
try. You were being quiet and thoughtful, and I know your resume, and I know you have a good background in recreation. So your thoughts, sir?
Okay, I got unmuted. I'm just happy to sit and listen. I like what you're wanting to do here with the three concepts. I kind of see number one and number three tied together. The survey and the gap analysis might actually merge together to do what we need to do there. I'd be excited to participate definitely in the gap analysis for sure. And I'm willing to learn about more what we want to do with community partnerships and whatnot. And certainly willing to work towards development of a master plan, get some ideas together. I think, we got an incredible body of talent in this group here, which is, it's going to be exciting to work with everybody. I'm probably going to do more learning than I am teaching in this body, but yeah, I guess the bigger challenge that I see with all of the strengths that we have in this group is being able to collectively pull it all together to feed into this master plan or define the goal that we ultimately want to do with this committee over the course of this year. So yeah, I'm not really able to contribute anything tonight, but I'm making notes here. And like I said, I'm certainly willing to help out here where I can.
Perfect. No, I appreciate that. Fiona, as clearly one of our partners, and that's why you're at this table, is to represent the schools as our partners. Your thoughts?
Like Neil, I think I'm happy to sit and listen to the expertise in the room and the excitement and the passion that I hear in the voices of people around this Zoom room is amazing. From a school perspective, absolutely. We share space and we have facilities and that sort of thing. And from a partnership perspective, absolutely want to sort of see what opportunities are out there to, as I think Leah used the term, the power of sport, right? The power of connection and the power of recreation within our school system for sure.
Great, thanks for that. And now, Lloyd, I see your hand still up, but I think your questions are good for now. Stacy, comments?
I wanted to just comment on something Leah said. I think it may answer some of your questions, Peggy, in the chat, or some of your comments, or at least speak to it. I think that the idea behind the community partnership discussions is even just as a first start of bringing all the groups together to actually just create a space for those conversations. I can say, building off of what Leah said, I had a meeting with Cochrane Minor Ball this week, just as an opportunity to connect with my new role. And one of the discussions we had was, yeah, it's really great that Horse Creek Sports Park coming on, but if we continue to have the older teams in that particular sport, we're going to have a problem because they can only play on one diamond in town because we only have one diamond that's 300 feet. And yes, there's lots of programs or potentially lots of opportunity for that 5 and 6s where we run out of space. But how do we actually keep the 15 and 16-year-olds playing? Because I can tell you when my kids were that age, and Leah, because we have children similar ages, I often said, I will pay for sports, as many sports as I need to, so that I'm not paying for lawyers. So as a community, how do we keep our kids in sport? How do we create the leadership skills that they learn? All of those things, there is opportunity, and it is about, being able to leverage one another. Maybe there's another group that is using a space that there could be a switch or a swap or whatever. I just think it's just opportunity to facilitate the discussion to start out with. And I have a feeling it will grow from there. I know that it may seem a little bit of an offshoot from the Parks and Rec Committee, but I think that's part of the growth of this committee is going to be what is actually the scope as we go forward, because it's been very focused on Horse Creek Sports Park for a couple of years. So where does the committee want to go? It may be a change in terms of reference as we build the community services department and as we start bringing that team together and all of the opportunity there. We're creating community liaison positions in parks and open spaces. We're bringing in an equity and inclusion, whatever that's going to be called, position. And I will have an update on the community services update later, but I think there's opportunity to leverage some of the skills that are coming into our organization, the skills, experience, and network that this team has, like that this group has, and then also then branch that out to these groups in the community. So it really was just let's try something and let's see where this can go. And the outcome is, the goal for the outcome is just generating the opportunity for that connection and for that discussion, and see what those groups of people can come up with. Obviously a very high level idea right now that will need to be, reformed before we walk into a room with a whole bunch of people expecting something. But definitely a concept that I think has great opportunity just to even define where this committee starts to go.
So Peggy, is that? And
Yeah. No, that's great. It's and I'm all good with ambiguity. I thrive in ambiguity. I always think there's so many forums that I'm part of where it would be beneficial to get I'm part of Canadian Parents for French. If only I could talk to those other volunteer groups in town and figure out how they're doing stuff during COVID. I get it. You never know until you get in the conversation what's going to come out of it. It could be your organization, Leah, that would lead this. So it doesn't necessarily, I'm just not saying we shouldn't. I'm just saying it would be your organization would be an obvious group to lead this kind of community discussion. But if we want to link it directly to the recreation master plan, then we need some kind of objective around the discussion so that they lead directly into input that we can use. So because they'll get their own benefits from the conversations that may not be helpful to the master plan.
Yeah, so I just want to share, so first of all, I think, yes, let's be clear. These are ambiguous. And these are, as you said, I'm going to steal your term again, the baseline info. Okay, these are first steps in getting this done. None of these three do I see to be a complete project that we could put a planning bow on and submit for awards somewhere. All of these are going to be work in progress, a chance for our committee to learn, but in these areas to then feed always that priority towards the recreation master plan. And also to bring some context to it, okay, there are not budget dollars allocated to this. So the capacity to deliver needs to be, a lot of it is going to lean on leveraging the brilliance of this group. So, and what I'm so excited about in recruiting and the people at the table is your brilliance and your expertise, and so I'm just here to leverage that now. So, this will be the first step, and then we'll see what resources we have in year 2 of the work. But for this is really going to be a lot about leveraging the committee's resources in expertise and time. We do have some staff resources available, but not to lead at this point. So the community survey, we are expecting we'll have support from our communications team, which is really, I found some way to kind of break through things on our engagement. They're doing a really good job the last couple of years. Partnership discussions, I mean, Leah, this has been your space. So to leverage that, just to start those conversations, to even if in the first year, we only have one conversation, but that start of the relationships, right? And the gap analysis, I'm kind of looking forward to that one because it gives a point to my walks. And I agree, if we can work with our GIS team and get, a way to identify it on the Google Maps, that's probably way more effective than me saying, when you turn left at the little bridge, somebody should fix the grass. You're right, it needs to be quantifiable and useful information. So yeah, and Peggy, as you're saying, not glamorous work and on a shoestring, but yeah, it's all about leveraging this group. So I have no staff for you. I have minimal funds. I just have needs and the willingness to leverage your brilliance and put you to work.
It sounds like my everyday. I don't know about you
Perfect, and you're
guys.
not getting paid, so hopefully everybody's better. Dawn, you have a comment?
Oh, you're muted, Dawn. Is it me?
Sorry about that. Just a couple of things that I think are building off of everybody's input tonight. And I'm just so excited about moving this forward, even on a shoestring or occasional cup of coffee, that type of thing. But one is, I think we need to have a very, very clear understanding when we're talking about this potential to lead to a recreation master plan. We need to have a definition of what falls within recreation from a very holistic perspective. And when we talk about things like a community partnership, looking at that, I mentioned the need to look at community associations as potential partners. And we've talked a lot about the sports group, and Leah, your group's done amazing work with the different sports groups. But I think it's really important if we define recreation to include, cultural aspects. Who can we partner with in the community? Even if they're for profit, is there potential for them, if the town doesn't have the capacity to run preschool dance lessons, is there potential to partner with a dance studio in town and work with them to ensure equitable access to programming? So I just think we need to take that step back and say, what do we mean when we're talking about recreation? What falls under that? What do we mean when we talk partners? How broad does that go? So I just wanted to throw those thoughts out there.
Yeah, Dawn, and then I'll let Stacy feed in. Yeah, I agree. We need to be very clear on the terms of reference for each of the aspects and make sure we have that defined. But before we even step forward to that clarity, we do need to kind of step back and take this to my council colleagues and make sure we're in alignment. And then if council supports this direction, my vision for this would be that we would come back to the committee and we would sit down, and as a group, we could define the terms of reference and our definitions, and then step through. My hope is to leverage, all of your brilliance. The first step, though, as I see it in the sequence of events, is as a group, we land that this is kind of the work that we want to do for the next year plus. And if there's nods and we're in the right lane, then Stacy and I will take it to the next available committee of the whole meeting. We'll get clear direction from council, then we'll come down as a group. We'll pick, maybe we just pick one to start with, probably the gap analysis, and get our elbows into it and live and learn a bit, and then and tangibly get into that one. Does that make, Stacy, your say? And then if everybody has thoughts around that, that'd be great to hear.
That would be my understanding and our approach. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody?
Do we need to come up with like a paragraph description about each of these items so that they understand what they mean?
So that would definitely be based on this conversation. It would be something that we would take. That's part of why it goes to committee of the whole council session first, so that we can say these are the high level goals of the committee, things that they're going to be working on, and then just having that discussion. And then council would endorse that with the understanding that some of these concepts need to be a little bit further defined, but the overall intent would be shared with them at that time.
So I see a thumbs up, and sorry, patience everybody as I make sure I channel across screens.
Sorry,
Leah, questions?
I was just thinking, I was actually just looking up the National Recreation Framework that was done a few years ago, kind of to see how they put like the active living piece in there. And so this is definitely a great point, Peggy. And where does the, could be a dirty word of sport, where does sport fit in there? Do we actually do something bold and call it the sport and recreation master community sport or something, right? Because it's a conversation in every community everywhere that we want to kind of pull it apart and do we, focus on this as a Parks and Recreation master plan, and then maybe it's, the sport network that we've initiated that creates a sport policy that blends with it, right? So I do think they go kind of hand in hand, they support each other, because sport and physical activity start and end in the community. And then maybe, the sport associations kind of take over in between there for a while, but there has to be some kind of connection there. So I think it's a great idea to sort of, without because it could become a very complicated discussion. But I think it's important to define that for sure, or like at least start thinking about that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing the definitions.
Yeah, that definition is pretty widely known. You'll know it, Leah, and
Oh, yeah.
and I found it cited at the Sport for Life conference as well.
Yeah.
Like it includes sport in not saying sport, but it obviously includes
Right.
sport. But another thing about recreation, and it's not as big an issue here because we don't allow as many traditional use activities like gathering of, I don't know what the rules are actually in Cochrane, but I'm sure it's generally frowned upon to gather berries, maybe not berries, maybe, go
Plant
hunting within Cochrane boundaries, but recreation is not inclusive of traditional use activities. So Indigenous, I'm thinking of in particular, and I just want to raise that because we have a large Indigenous population, and certainly our neighbors, they come and visit us all the time. So, and use the facilities here too. So I'm not saying that the traditional use activities don't happen here. I just don't feel that their definition has ever been any version of when we say recreation that we really include traditional use. So just throwing it out
It's an
there.
interesting point that I definitely hadn't thought of. The only gathering that I know of in town is rescuing the crab apples and the pears from the fruit trees downtown.
Yeah, well, and I think the biggest part of the problem with that definition is the wording freely chosen. So that implies you're doing it during your leisure time, and that whereas for Indigenous peoples, their practices on the land are often part of their way of life, part of their culture. Sure, it's freely chosen, but it's bigger than that. It's something that they feel obligation and responsibility towards. So
Well, thank you.
anyway, I actually don't think it comes into play in a big way as I say it, but I just wanted to raise that philosophical point because I think it's interesting.
No, and I appreciate it, and it's an important lens. And of course, the municipality is just bringing on. I'm losing the title, but we've budgeted to hire somebody focused on diversity and our relations with the First Nations, and to improving that. And so it's all about making sure we're bringing those lens. And so thank you to bringing it to this one because I would have missed it. So that's the genius of having this diversity of people tonight. Okay, so we're gonna leave the definitions, and I love you all because everybody's desperate to get in and create a framework and a definition, and we'll pass it. But we're gonna step away from that tonight. We'll make sure that we're in alignment. So I thumbs up. I think I'm seeing. I will ask for a motion to support the work plan in principle to be shared with council. And then we'll take that forward. So
moved.
I don't know, Stacy, does that count as a official? How should I word this? How should the person who moves this word this?
I think it's a motion to support the work plan as defined to go forward to council for approval.
Okay, all in favor? Well, sorry, who's making the motion? Okay, Neil's making the motion. All in favor? Okay, passed unanimously by my screen. Again, as always, if it's not unanimous, let me know. I do look, but sometimes I might miss it. Anyway, thank you for that, everybody. Like I said, it's going to be a first step. It's going to be pretty grassroots, and it's going to lean on your brilliance. I'll do my best to lean and leverage municipal assets as we have them, but it's not budgeted, and we are in a right size is the word of the day. So anyhow, thank you for that, group. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to it. So moving on to 5, the budget update. So I think the last time we met in November, I don't think the budget had been passed. Don't remember the timelines. What we had done at that point was identify the different elements that recreation, played into what, and you probably have all seen the news, the big story of the budget. Of course, the one is like, oh, there's a 10% tax rate increase. But really the mission of this budget was to not only to right size the municipality, we had gaps, and this committee has seen that. The work we wanted to do really relies on having a community services manager or executive director. We haven't had that department for 2 years. So as a municipality, it's been a major gap. And so, and a gap that I care about deeply. I think this is a real part of what having a community is about. So what this budget was kind of filling the gaps and right sizing the ship. So, so it was inflation, which is about 4% just by itself. Restaffing. This time there was more of a, we gave, it wasn't a position by position budget decision. It was a scope of, here's the funds needed to rebuild it, because the first step, and Stacy will be able to update this, hiring that executive director, but there's no team. So that person needs the resources available and the flexibility to build their team, because there's really nothing there at this point. So it's, first is the inflation, it's rebuilding the team. And then also, I mean, if you're, Cochrane's gonna boom again, and my sense of it, we're in it right now. You're seeing our development permits, the last update I had, we're at near record levels already. GDP, jobs, a lot of the provincial, and of course we've seen oil and gas is recovering. You've seen your inflation on your household bills. We're back in a boom. And whether it's feeding into COVID or whatever the case may be, people are wanting to live here. So this is putting a lot of stress on our services as is. So as a community, and this has always been something that I feel this, and my vision for this is we've restocked the team, or we're restocking the team, but we also need to be a team that looks to the future. And so that's part of what these positions were that we are looking for, is to not only be able to deliver the services of today, because by the time we bring these people into play, we're going to have outgrown it. We need to have the capacity to look to the future in an aggressive way. And so that's my interpretation of the budget. Everybody voted for it for their own reasons or against it for their own reasons. But that 10% works out to about $20 a month on your budget. That's what the investment is bringing our municipal capacity back up to where it needs to be, because we ran on crisis for 2 years. And not only to bring it up to capacity, but to then put in leadership and future looking positions so that we can plan and get ahead and be best in class. So that's my vision. That's why I supported the budget. Cochrane has always gotten good value for your tax dollars. With the end of the budget process, we got an update that, so as of last year, per person, you were paying less in taxes per person in 2021 than you were 10 years prior to that. So, and we have amazing services. In that time, we got a new rec center. We got a new rec center. We've got transit. We've added a lot of services. So I really feel we're getting really good value for our tax dollars in Cochrane. It's time to look ahead. So, and interesting enough, like nobody likes to raise taxes. I'm not really liking the impact in my world either. But it's putting us where we need to be a future looking community. And that's my expectations for where we need to be, which is why I supported it. And I'm confident that we're going to be able to do that with this budget. I'm trying to think whatever else I had on the budget. And honestly, I don't know if I had more emails in my inbox about the wave park, which I had no say over, than I actually did have about the tax this year. But anyhow, all that to say, that's my lens on why I supported the budget and why I thought it was a necessary move. But I'm more than glad to answer any questions, and Stacy can clarify for me what that looks like. But I'll turn it over to the group if anybody has any questions for me. Or if you just want to say I'm brilliant, that's an acceptable way to wrap up the budget update as well.
You're brilliant, Tara.
Thanks, Fiona. You're brilliant too. I love the school board. No?
I'll
Okay,
write you a letter later, Tara. Just kidding.
fair enough.
Just kidding.
Fair enough. Yeah, you can privately reach out.
Let's
please.
fill her inbox. She didn't get
No,
enough
I wasn't
feedback
really
on the
trying to go
budget.
for that. I really set that up wrong. Yeah, so, but overall, like I said, I'm excited about this because, I mean, as Stacy identified, we had spent a long time looking at the Horse Creek Sports Park and focused on planning. But not only was it like something that needed to be done, it was also one of the few things that we had the resources to do. So now that we're adding resources back into play, we can move ahead. So that's my budget update. Yeah, I'm sorry if I put anybody on the spot. If you like, reach out to me, to my council email if you could, or give me a call. I'd be more than glad to chat out my perspective. Perfect. Okay, nobody's moving. Okay, so Stacy, did you want to say anything on the budget or how brilliant I am?
As always, Councillor McFadden, you are brilliant. I think the most important point is it's not just that, you know, we've grown not just in population, but we've grown in our pathways, in our playgrounds. In the last 6 years, we've added, I think it's 16 playgrounds. We've added, or 6 playgrounds, sorry, 30 some kilometers of pathways, never ending amounts of sidewalks, all of which I mean, these are the assets that we say this is what makes our community beautiful and great. And so we just have to make sure that we're maintaining appropriate resource levels to be able to take care of those assets in our community. So definitely not an easy decision by this council, never is. And it's not a decision or a proposal that administration would ever take lightly. It comes with a significant amount of responsibility and a significant amount of expectation, not just from council, but obviously from the community on what we're going to deliver for those dollars. And I think one of the interesting things that I heard said throughout all of the dialogue that was happening was people don't necessarily expect low taxes, they expect good value for their taxes. And I think that's what we're trying to say is what our expectation is that that's what we're going to deliver on, is that Cochrane residents will continue to see the services that they expect and the amenities that they expect. And like I said, not the least of which is those open spaces in our parks and pathways and the things that this committee are specifically focused on. So, and the resurrection of the community services department. So I'm excited about that, obviously.
Perfect. Thanks, Stacey. I really appreciate that. Okay, I've just kind of done a scan. I'm not seeing anybody. Like I said, if you reach out if you'd like to. But then can I get a motion to accept the budget update? Leah, thank you for making the motion. All in favor? And looks to be passed unanimously. Thank you so much. Then moving on to item 6, the community services update. Over to you, Stace.
Yeah, so part of the, as I said, part of the budget was creating the ability to add the directors into our organization. One of the key positions for this area, obviously, Director of Community Services. I'm happy to say, I cannot say specifics, but I have an accepted offer as of today. And the person will be starting as of the 7th, I believe it is. So that update, I don't even know if it's gone to council yet, which is why I'm not saying a whole lot. But it all really happened at the end of today. So things are moving. Definitely been having a conversation with the managers in that community services portfolio. Spoke with Kim Krawick today, the manager of FCSS. Christy, who's the manager of the Ranch House, Angie, who's the current Parks coordinator, now Parks liaison position, and the team itself are very excited about the synergies and the opportunities for their teams to work together and all of the ability to pull those groups together and really collaborate and deliver for the community. They see the vision that I have and the things that I've talked about here. And so now it's just a matter of getting the people in the spots to be able to start to implement. So I'll be happy to introduce the new director, hopefully by the next committee meeting. On that, the only other thing which I didn't include in the budget was We did include playground equipment replacement and the Jim Uffelman Park review, which were part of the approved budget. I also had, we had Jumpstart Canada reach out to us. They're curious and excited and looking for an opportunity to partner with the town for an inclusive playground project. So we're looking toward that opportunity. So I think there's lots of positives coming. So yeah, hopefully by the next meeting, we'll be introducing the new director. And I'm not sure if this happened before I joined at like 1 minute before 7, but you may have noticed that we have another name on the screen. Lee Sands is new to the Ledge Services team, and the role of supporting and championing all of the things that this community is trying to, or this committee is trying to achieve in our notes and our minutes, will be transitioning from Karen to Lee. So Lee has joined the Legislative Services Department. There was a retirement there. Some of you may know Betty Susky, who was a very long tenured employee and a rock for that department. So Lee has joined, is taking on that role, and will be taking over from Karen, who is always consumed with subdivision development appeal boards and assessment review boards. So she has to give up the fund committee to go back to her quasi-judicial world. So. Welcome, Lee.
Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't do a formal introduction during the process. We had a bit of a chat prior, but yes, Lee, thank you very much for joining us. And like I said earlier, welcome to the team. We're glad to have you. And Karen, you'll be missed. I know every time you try to step away, we pull you back in. But it looks like you're going to be free to go enjoy SDAB hearings.
Not just yet. Not just yet.
So yeah, so that's the I think that wraps up the community services update. Questions on that for Stacy? No. Perfect. Okay, motion to accept the community services update. And Peggy's made the motion. All in favor? And passed unanimously. Thanks so much. Yeah, so a round table. Let's do a round table tonight. Lloyd, go ahead.
Yes, our Cochrane Men's Walking Group are back in the fold again. We're doing quite well, maintaining social distancing, and our turnout has been really good. November, we had 199 participant walks. You can add 4 to 5 kilometers to each one of those walks. That's how much we use the walking paths. December, we had 155 participant walks, but it got cold on us, really cold. So we didn't walk as much. Anyways, we have 35 guys on the roster, and on a given day now, with the weather getting better, we have about 12 to 15 guys that want to do that walk. So no, we utilize the pathway systems we have, and they're being well maintained even after all these recent snowfalls. So we thank you for that. I guess that's all I had to do. And once again, I have to say that Dawn and Lloyd and Kelly, this is year number 4 for us. So this will be the last term for us, eh, Dawn?
Oh, yeah, we probably have restrictions.
Anyways, that's my roundtable discussion. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for the update. And, you know, if we're wearing out, we'll send you the bill for wearing out the trails.
Thank you.
No, I'm glad everybody's getting out to enjoy it. Other comments?
This was related or relevant. I attended the Christmas bird count. It's the 2nd year, I guess I've done it, maybe 3rd. Anyway, it was awesome as usual. It was actually not frigid, terrible weather. We also used the pathways, and I got the coveted Riverview pathway section to do. I can't tell you all the bird species that we saw off the top of my head. The only rare ones we saw were the Eurasian colored dove. Some of the riverfront properties there, they have bird feeders and stuff. So those are the places to go. But such a cool event, and it's organized, been organized for the last 3 years, just reinstated by a woman that I've just forgotten the name of. Anyway, she's lovely and she's a biologist in Cochrane. And so she's been leading the bird count for the past 3 years.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Fiona, did you want to wade in? Fiona may have disappeared on us. Or
No,
Fiona,
I'm
you want
here.
to-
I lost my mouse. I'm trying to do double screening and I couldn't find my mouse because my cat had been on my computer. There you go. Playing the typical cat and mouse game. Dawn has had her hand up though for a couple of minutes, Tara, so I'm not sure if maybe we want to
you go ahead, Fiona. You go ahead, Fiona.
Okay. From a school perspective, put my camera on here for a minute. From a school perspective, you talking about town wrapping up their budgets. We're actually just starting in to budgets. We're on a different kind of a cycle for that. So anxiously awaiting to see what government decides and take things from there from a school budget perspective. So that's really the work that we have ahead of us from a sort of recreation kind of point of view. We have happy to continue to keep our schools open for community use throughout this pandemic over this last little bit. So that has been that is good. I'm glad to see that. I hope that can continue. We have implemented sort of mandatory vaccination or negative test requirements for adults coming into our buildings, and so that's a new thing that went into place in January. But for most of the community groups, that's really not new, right? Because it is a requirement for the adults to do that, and so just sort of navigating through some of that. I know we've had lots of conversation at this table around the Cochrane High sports field. There is not any movement on that, just so everybody's kind of aware. There hasn't been any further discussion than what has happened here at this group or since the last meeting with council, I believe at the end of June, maybe, with that. And anticipating that some of the work around Horse Creek Sports Park, transfers of dollars and all they're upcoming in the next little while. So those are some of the pieces from our rec piece that we will be working on.
Yeah, thanks, Fiona. Yeah, you're getting closer to paying you.
It's only been what, 5 years? Actually, no, 7, I think, actually. So
I think we're just about done. Larry and I, we have one section left and we need an updated plan.
That's okay. I know, we know you're good for it, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, sorry, Dawn.
Yeah.
Well, just a thought, you had mentioned earlier about me being the vice chair, and I'm just wondering, after doing it for 3 years, I'd be willing to throw that out to the group if there's anybody who wants to step up to the plate and take that on. I just don't want to feel like I'm hogging it.
Yeah, you know, I hadn't even given any thoughts, but it's a fair comment. I like how we finally come up with a whole schwack of work to do, and you're like, you know, I'll step down as the vice chair. So, but anyway, Dawn, thank you for that. Was any thoughts from anybody else? The vice chair duties, this group, us veterans, Lloyd and Dawn and Kelly, had kind of leveraged the vice chair position a little bit more prior, but just generally covers running a meeting if the chair can't make it. And then
we did a lot of council presentations too, Tara.
And you did, oh yeah, sorry, I saw them, they look easy from my side of the bench. And yes, the council presentations representing this group. And then we had some committee work. So I don't know, Dawn, if you want to explain the workload, but if anybody's, you know, interested,
it's not onerous in any way. I just, if anybody else wants to take it on, I'm more than happy to step back from it. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I see everybody's jumping at the opportunity.
Everybody, it's like watching somebody at the auction. Nobody's twitching.
Okay. I'm happy to stay on it, but if nobody else wants to take it.
Dawn, you do such a good job. Why would you step down? You're just fine the way you are, so hang in there. Thank you.
But shouldn't I train somebody for when I leave the committee? I'm just kidding.
Well, no, there is the succession planning, because you actually have to admit, you threw me for a tailspin bringing up end of terms, because the point, my goal with this committee was never that I chair this for the rest of my time in Cochrane. The goal was always to transition this to, you know, the committee was leading it, and now we're getting to that point. So you had been vice chair, and I was comfortable that we kind of had a succession plan that I was comfortable with, and now I'm suddenly aware of timelines and you're stressing me out. But we do have a year to figure that out, or a term to figure that out. So keep it in mind, group. We don't have to talk about it today. If somebody's interested in stepping up for a vice chair, if you want to reach out to me directly or have a think about it, we can talk about it at a future meeting. Dawn, thank you for bringing it up, and we'll see where it goes. But it's a good point. I appreciate it. Okay, anybody else?
Tara, I just had a question, and I might have missed this, and I know we have a bit lower attendance tonight, but do we still have a Spray Lakes liaison?
That's something Stace and I are going to have to check into, because we do, by terms of reference, have a Spray Lakes liaison. Councillor Reed was the liaison because he was on that committee. He stepped away from that committee, and the mayor is now council's rep to Spray Lakes, but we don't yet have a Spray Lakes rep to this group. And it was going to be on my to-do list. So we will pursue that, because they're an important partner as well, and it's great to be able to keep everybody in the loop. But thanks for raising it. I appreciate it. Anyone else? No? Okay. Yeah, so I'll just wrap up. So we talked about the budget. Council took a break kind of last part of December, and then we're back at it now. One of the big things moving ahead, and this group might be interested in, is we're just moving into, we just passed first reading of the land use bylaw. And remember, it's always really a really boring title for a very important document. I think this got started in 2018. The land use bylaw is how we use the land, but it's really, you know, how are we going to build, what's important to us. This is stuff like, you know, sidewalks or side yard setbacks or density or parking. So have a look. The public engagement that the team did was really well done. Have a look. We are going to be moving into, it's going to be presented to council at the next committee of the whole meeting. So if you like watching committee of the whole meetings, that's a good way to get updated on it. It's also on the website. And then we're going to move into there's going to be a public hearing following that. And it's a really important document. If you have any interest at all, I suggest maybe watching the next committee of the whole meeting or checking out the website. It's a really good one. I think what else is going on? We got hit a little bit last meeting, Monday's meeting. We've got two major projects that we're borrowing money for. The 1A expansion work that I think I'm quite happy with to date. It's amazing what any improvement improves my life and getting around town. And also the RCMP station. And Stacey's going to correct me if I go off track here too far. But historically, how it was set up is the province would, you know, you could borrow money from the province's kind of system at below market rates. And so that put us, you know, we planned our financing strategies for these multi-million-dollar projects around that. The province has just recently and unexpectedly changed that. So the forecasted interest rates that we thought we were going to be able to lock these projects in at are suddenly, they changed unexpectedly. So the last meeting, we adapted to the change, and we're still getting good interest rates, but it's monies. We adapted the strategy slightly and gave permission to Catherine, ahead of our finance team, Executive Director of Financial Services, I believe the title is, to go forth and get that loaning in order sooner than later, so that we don't lose those interest rates. We just, you know, changing parameters and dealing with the province kind of caught us by surprise. So, but the teams adapted and come up with a plan that I'm comfortable with, but it, you know, it does affect a percentage rate on millions of dollars has a difference on the budgets. But we are adapting well. The team came up with a good plan, I feel. And that's what like I said, council's back in the swing of things. Looking ahead, March, we're going to go into strategic planning session, which is kind of the first step in mapping out and affirming priorities. And that kind of gives the marching orders for the administrative team to plan out what the 2023 budget looks like. So kind of the cycle never quite ends. So it's kind of where we're at now. Committee work is resuming. We recently had Rotary step forward. They're doing a Indigenous placemaking initiative, and had reached out to town council to be a partner in that. So Councillor Flowers has stepped forward to be our volunteer on that project. So I'm really glad to see that we're starting to deliberately create these relationships and recognize the diversity and the history and take some right steps. So it's forward looking. Councillor Flowers is going to be representing us on that. So a lot of work. Yeah, it's gearing back up again for council. I have to admit, I did enjoy the Christmas break there. But we are well and truly back at it now. So any questions on my update around the budget? Other things, it's too cold to horseback ride. I started walking again.
Tara, I wasn't familiar with the land use bylaw update. I must have been hiding from all news, which probably was wise. What is the change proposed for the Big Hill? Is there a change in zoning under the land use bylaw for the Big Hill?
Oh, for the lodge?
For the area that's owned within city boundaries, but you know where they have the Big Hill development?
Yeah, sorry, that's not part of the land use bylaw. So that, that's the owners are wanting to develop the land.
Yeah.
I haven't heard an update of where they're at.
But they require a land use bylaw change in order to get their development there.
Yeah, but so the land use bylaw, we're rewriting the bylaw. We did get, they're not quite linked. They're in the same world. The land use bylaw is our rules for everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't take into account particular applications.
No, but it has zoning in it, right? The land use bylaw includes zoning for future
in the
development.
zoning definitions, but I don't think it's changing that's laid out in the MDP, and I think that's laid out as a neighborhood plan, but I have to admit I'm getting a little bit lost on it. For this though, that is a project that is going to be showing up soon, I would imagine. I haven't heard any updates recently on it though. But have a look at the land use bylaw. It's all available online. The team's laid it out really well. And
I'll compare the old version to the new version.
Yeah. If you have particular questions, reach out to me or to Stacy, and we can connect you to the land use bylaw team, and they can step you through it. So my focus right now is, there's a couple of different pieces in there, but yeah, we're getting back into that one. So have a look at it, send me any particular questions, and I'll get you a better answer than that.
Awesome, thanks.
So Stacy, can you rescue me there? I feel I was definitely getting lost.
I'm trying to look at it. There is a link. So the land use bylaw does have zoning maps attached to it. If you're specifically speaking, are you speaking to the Franciscans, where the Franciscans own the land? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
I anticipate it's probably still designated some form of reserve.
Yeah, I'm trying to read the ArcGIS online link that is there, and I see it's called urban holdings, but that's not a zoning category. So
because I think that's an old one. If you're on the mapping, you have to actually go into the land use bylaw itself and look at the new maps, because those have not been adopted. But I anticipate it will still be identified as a form of a holding district until such time as they bring forward an actual either area structure plan or neighborhood plan for the development, and then have to come forward with a land use redesignation, because it doesn't have a formal land use. So it doesn't have, like, for example, multifamily use or single family designation. It's just a holding for future residential. Is probably how it's defined.
Well, it's a municipal reserve for a future park is what I think how I would define it.
That would be expropriation and would cost us some money. So.
No, we just buy it before the area structure plan so that it costs
Oh.
less money. It's worth a lot less within there than it is after they get the area structure plan. It's worth a lot more money after they get the area structure plan.
There's a couple parcels there where I think there's people in the community that might appreciate if we did that. It may still actually be urban holdings now that I'm looking at the land use bylaw. So I don't think that the name of the districts may have changed, and what's permitted and not permitted, and what is, oh my God, an accessory use, thank you, brain, may have changed. Some of those definitions may have changed, but the actual, what the intent of the land use is, I don't think there's been categorical changes in that. There will be some lots just by default that may end up with that legal non-conforming status. With a change, say, for example, where it used to be allowed to have a motel somewhere and now you can't have that, but you can have, I don't know, a hair studio. It's a bad example, but so there may be some of that, but there hasn't been whole scale land use redesignations where something that had no land use was suddenly designated for multifamily, for example. Those would have to go through the application process, which I think is what Councillor McFadden was trying to say.
That's what I was trying to say. Thank you so much.
Good,
I'll also try to, well, so Karen's sending out the link, so everybody will have it. And I'll write a note here to raise the question in the committee of the whole meeting and get some clarity there for everybody, because it's obviously one that a lot of people are paying attention to.
Yeah, well, it would be a sneaky way to talk the town into changing the bylaw now. It would save them a lot of money and time, because the area structure plan it would be hard for the town to turn it down if they'd already zoned it for residential rather than reserve. So I'm just.
Yeah, and
we always have to watch out for the law of unintended consequences. And so, yeah, thank you for flagging it.
Yeah, I would just say the intent of this rewrite was specifically to update policy. So to update policies for uses and policy for what types of uses are allowed within our community. Anything that didn't have a land use, the planning department wouldn't arbitrarily assign one.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, no, thank you for paying attention to the file. It's okay. Anybody else? Questions, queries? No? Cool. Okay, so that's our round table. Just a motion to accept the round table. And Neil's making that motion for us.
No, you don't need a motion to accept the round table.
No, cool.
No.
Thank you. Somebody was going to fix me on that. Okay, well
You
then I
just
have the
need one
power
to
to
adjourn.
I have the power to adjourn, and I need to get myself a big gavel for my home office. But yes, I don't even know what time it is. I've lost.
How about a bike bell or something? One of those big squeaky ones. A bike bell, wouldn't that be recreation focused?
It's 8:30 on the nose.
Thank you. We are adjourning the meeting at 8:30. So thank you everybody for your participation and your contribution to the community. I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
And you're going to be
everyone.
busy, so
Good
thanks.
night.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks all.
Good night.
Night.